and how much they're entitled to receive. But in actuality, what it's meant is that any injured worker who has a voucher is pretty much entitled to a $5,000 check from the state of California. Crazy, right? So no matter how the case resolves, either by STIP with Christopher Award or CNR, how much their PD is, as long as they bring their voucher to the appeals board, use their computer, submit their claim, they get $5,000. Pennies from heaven. I always like to think of Oprah. Think of Oprah when you think of the Return to Work program. You get $5,000. You get $5,000. You get $5,000. Everybody gets $5,000, right? Um, there's a cool little fact or bill that's going to or that might pass that would require the state of California to exhaust the funds each year, meaning that although they get $5,000 now, it may increase in the future. I wanted to read a little blurb from an article I just pulled up. So the Department of Industrial Relations paid out a little more than half, 65.3 million of the available funds in 2016. As of the end of March, the department is projecting it will distribute 81.4 million. So that bill that I was just talking to you about, if that had passed and was in effect last year, the 13,061 injured workers who received a $5,000 check through the program would have received a second $4,187.65 check. So not only do they get the $5,000 if that bill passes, they'll also get $44,100. So that's why the Return to Work program is such a hotly litigated issue right now. Without the voucher, they get no money. So let's get into new vouchers and then old vouchers. Just as a disclaimer, I don't mean to be over technical when speaking about vouchers. Ultimately, you're better off sending out some type of notice and then litigating the issue later. But I do want to go over the details, the criteria, just in the case you ever come across a situation where applicant's attorney has filed a petition for penalties, is seeking costs, and is seeking attorney's fees for having failed to issue the voucher. So as I said earlier, new vouchers apply to dates of injury from January 1st, 2013 to present. The value of the voucher is fixed at $6,000, no more, no less. $1,000 of which can be used towards the purchase of a computer. I would recommend that, there's no law requiring that you advance the $1,000, but I would recommend that you wait it off until you receive some type of written documentation, receipt, before making that $1,000 payment. And then also they can get $500 just for the asking, just for the request. As we'll speak more, or as we'll talk more later, unless they're going to an approved school, really the most amount of money that you'll be spending after issuing notice is $1,500. So it begs the question, how much do you really want to spend litigating over sending notice? So let's go over some of the criteria, some of the requirements about when a voucher becomes payable. So first report received. Second, finding that disability from all conditions for which compensation is claimed. Third, has become permanent and stationary. Fourth, that the injury has caused permanent partial disability. And lastly, on the physician's return to work and voucher report. Funny thing about the fifth one, has anyone actually seen that form issued? Once, right? I actually had to look it up. I've never seen that form issue.
I'm litigating that issue right now.
Yeah.
Can't force a doctor to complete the form.
Yeah, it's honestly very rare that it issues, like honestly seeing in uniform. But that's the funny thing. I actually had to look it up to see what it looked like.
Why do I always get the uniforms?
To explain kind of the requirements a little bit better, I'll throw out a hypothetical. So you have a specific date of injury. The applicant has alleged injury to his back, his right knee. Applicant has been determined permanent stationary with regard to the back, but is still treating for the right knee. Should the voucher issue, or should notice the voucher issue? Well, let's look at the requirements. Specifically, requirement number 2 and number 3. Although the applicant is declared permanent stationary with regard to the back, he's not treating, or he's still treating for the right knee. So we can make the argument that the voucher is not payable at this point. But again, we're not advocating that you withhold issuing notice of voucher. If there's sufficient evidence, send a notice. So what happens when the voucher becomes payable? You must issue a notice of offer of regular, modified, or alternative work within 60 days. After the 60 days is up, then you must issue the voucher within 20 days. And just to give you a little bit more details, the regular, modified, or alternate work must be within applicant's restrictions, must be within a reasonable commuting distance, must last at least 12 months, and must be within 85% of the applicant's wages. Although issuance of the voucher is mandatory, payment under the voucher is discretionary. The employee must ask for it. Again, issue the notice, that's all that's required at that point. They must ask for the payment of the voucher, either the $1,500, $1,000 for the computer, $500 just for the asking. And then unless they're going to an approved school, that's the most amount of money that you'll be having to issue after sending notice. And we provided you with the website for the list of approved schools under the new voucher program here. Our firm has actually had some claims where the applicant has gone to an out-of-state school or used an online class, and it was not on the approved school list. Can that specific claimant get some type of reimbursement? No, they're not on the approved list. So make that argument. They're not. If that school or online class, out-of-state school is not on that approved list, they're not entitled to reimbursement until they do. And then lastly, injuries while using the voucher are not compensable. New vouchers cannot be settled unless there's actually a case law that suggests that unless there's a good faith dispute as to injury, AOC injury, the voucher can be settled under Beltran versus Structural Steel Fabricators. Does anyone remember the Thomas waiver? Yep. As in Thomas, where the parties established there's a good faith dispute, which, if resolved against the injured worker, would bar the injured worker's entitlement to all workers' compensation benefits, then the injured worker may settle his or her right to a voucher. But from our experience, not all judges are sold on Beltran, but it is an argument that you can use if you ever come across the issue. Now, there's a couple questions that get asked a lot. Can we settle the voucher if it's an admitted case? Or what happens at deposition? Can we settle the voucher at that point? Typically, it depends on facts of the case. But say the case is admitted or you're at deposition, but at that point in time you have no evidence of PD, no permanent stationary report. Again, the requirements that we were speaking about earlier. If you can include language in the CNR saying that there's no evidence of PD, there's no permanent stationary report, therefore applicant is not entitled to the voucher. And that it's very important to be clear and concise when talking about the voucher issue. Just when that voucher issue comes up later on, you can point to the CNR language or the settlement documents and let them know that we explicitly stated this language in there with regards to the voucher. With regard to when the statute of limitation runs, it expires 2 years after notice is sent or 5 years from the date of the injury, whichever is later. Again, sending notice, if you don't send notice, the statute of limitations does not run. So send the notice and then litigate the issue later. Disputes regarding the voucher should be submitted on the request for dispute resolution before an administrative director form. Notice that this isn't a mandatory requirement, but it does provide us with an opportunity to use or a tool to use should applicant's attorney ever file a DOR on the issue. Also, it gives the judge an opportunity to kick out an issue, and we know how judges love kicking out issues. And then lastly, appeals from the determination of the administrative director are filed with the appeals board. Any questions about new vouchers? Yes.
So the work program, does that follow the same jurisdictional issues that come in play for 2013? In that, does the worker need to be residing in California to receive that, or can they
Just to repeat the question, just to clarify, you're asking if they live out of state, can that return to work program apply to them, basically?
Can they get their $5,000?
Do they get their $5,000?
Yes, voucher program applies to wherever they're at. But remember, the list of schools generally lists California schools. So if they're not at one of those schools,
That's really the only jurisdictional issue that crops up after 113.
correct.
Okay,
But remember, they can also still get that $1,000 for a computer, and they can still get the money from the state of California as well.
okay.
Do you have questions?
Yeah, so can you deny a voucher based on that physician return to work and voucher report not being issued? Or is it kind of a non-issue if they're paying us with the two of you saying they're entitled to a voucher?
Just to repeat your question for the viewers at home. Can you deny issuance of the voucher if there's not the issuance of the physician's return to work form? I would argue that don't deny it just on that basis. It's important just to send notice. Send notice of it, but we don't want to be fighting over technicality, or we don't want to be fighting over technicality. We'll defend against it. So just because that small issue comes up, wouldn't be the most beneficial basis to deny the issuance of the voucher.
Technically, you can. And as Allison said, we're defending a case on that basis right now. But if you have information indicating that the voucher is due, you have a P&S report for all conditions, you have an indication they can't go back to work, you're better off sending it to get the notice started. And as Rommel mentioned at the beginning, some notice is required. So if you're not sending out the notice of regular, alternate, or alternative or modified work, then you should send a notice of voucher. You shouldn't wait for one simple form. Where this presentation came about was with the litigation from Apted attorneys. And they're saying, you didn't send the voucher timely. Not only do we want our voucher, we want penalties and interest. And when we started looking into this, we found this, hey, we haven't got this silly little form yet. And the applicant attorneys are saying, I didn't know about that. That's not our problem. It's right there in the code section. Just read down 6 paragraphs. So we don't recommend that you deny based solely upon that, but it does give you a basis to defend.
And I can say that at this point, in the defense of that apps, I know I can chat with you about it afterwards, but we've spent more now litigating it than the total cost of the voucher. I mean, I've been to the board 4 times on this, and we still have to litigate the actual entitlement to the voucher after we get the doctor to actually complete the form.
So the code also says that if somebody goes back to work, that it is considered an offer of regular work. Has anyone seen this litigated yet? Because I've had it where I'm not going to fight over it. The applicant attorney insists we didn't send anything, but they clearly went back to full duty. It says in the code that if they went there for all purposes, it is, if they did return, then for all purposes they are been offered the job. But I haven't seen it litigated, and I haven't fought it because, again, we're not going to spend more than $6,000.
To reiterate your question, what you're asking is, if they have returned to work, is that deemed an offer of regular work?
But it is in the code, it says so.
My reading of the code is that if they've lost no time, it's presumed that they have, that they're offered modified work. I'm unfamiliar with the code section you're referring
It's
to.
in 101.33. I don't have it here. I have it printed out at home.
You didn't bring it with you?
No, one thing. I brought everything else.
I generally don't like to rely upon technicalities. If you know somebody's been out of work and they're back, send them the notice of or regular work. It's just another notice we have to send, but it protects our interest in the event that somebody later comes back and asks for a voucher.
Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to old vouchers. Old vouchers, as I mentioned earlier, apply to dates of injury from January 1st, 2004 through December 31st, 2012. The value of the vouchers dependent on the percentage of the PD value. So unlike The new vouchers depends on the PD value, up to $10,000, starting at $4,000. Also, just similar from the new vouchers, old vouchers, none of it goes directly to the applicant. It all goes towards a vocational school or up to 10% for vocational counseling services. So what are the requirements for when notice issues? The notice of offer, regular, modified, or alternate work must issue within 30 days, with work to begin in 60 days at the termination of PD. If there's PD, at the end of TD, if the applicant has PD and does not return to work within 60 days, then we owe the voucher. Then just like the new vouchers, regular, modified, or alternate work must be within applicant's restrictions, must be within a reasonable commuting distance, must last at least 12 months, and must be within 85% of applicant's wages. And then the old vouchers aren't payable until an award issues. So wait until a PD award issues, and then you have within 25 days to issue the old voucher. The voucher must indicate the appropriate dollar value available to the employee. So $4,000, $6,000, $8,000, or $10,000. Make sure it indicates on that voucher the amount.
If a worker moves further away, move their residence further away from where they were at the time of the injury, what's your responsibility for making it, within a reasonable commuting distance?
Just repeat your question. You're saying if
a worker, he said they live close to where they were at the time of the injury, but in the meantime they moved away and it's further away, what's the responsibility for accommodating them in that scenario?
Well, when you issue that notice, it must be within a reasonable commuting distance from that point in time. So if they end up moving later on, it's basically just that note, the initial notice where they are at that time.
Forgive us when we repeat your questions. We're not doing that because we can't hear you. We're doing that usually because the microphone doesn't pick up everyone's voice. So we're not being rude by repeating. We're trying to make sure that everyone hears them. But that being said, if somebody has moved away from their work and there's no work available for them, we can contest that because they've made themselves unavailable. But once again, we're looking at a question of how much do we want to fight for a $6,000 benefit, and do they meet the other criteria? For the new vouchers, are they PNS? Do they have PD? Are they PNS for all conditions? Make sense?
Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines of the employer would have probably had work available for them to do at their regular job had they not moved further away, and what the responsibility for the employer was at that time. That would basically answer the question of what needed to be done. We're not just curious.
I'll just move back over here.
And then, just like the new vouchers, injuries while using the voucher are not compensable. Payment under the voucher may be paid directly to an approved school or as reimbursement for having attended an approved school. Notice that these websites are actually different from the websites with regard to the new voucher program. So just notice the date of the injury and go to the appropriate website with regard to old vouchers and new vouchers. And then unlike the new vouchers, vouchers can be settled in a compromise or release. So say you have a CT injury ending in 2015, but you have a specific date of injury also in the same case that ends in 2010. Can you settle the 2010 voucher? Yes, you can. Include language in there noting that the 2010 date of injury is with regard to the vouchers being resolved. And then the other voucher remains, they're still entitled to that voucher. And then just like the new vouchers, voucher issued after January 1st, 2013, expired 2 years after issuance of the notice, or 5 years from the date of the injury, whichever is later. So not a lot of case law out there, as you can see, with regard to vouchers, but we've provided you with the ones we think are most important. As I said earlier, Beltran versus structural steel fabricators. With regard to vouchers for date of injury from January 1st, 2013 to present. They can be settled if there's a good faith dispute as to AOE COE injury. Again, not all judges are sold on Beltran, but it is an argument we can use. Second case, Fuentes versus the Cheesecake Factory. Penalty imposed under Labor Code Section 5814 for unreasonable delay in providing the voucher. Third case, Garcia versus Sara Lee for 25% penalty awarded for unreasonable delay of the voucher, just on the amount paid. And then lastly, Silva versus Liberty Mutual. The applicant who receives 2 PD awards is entitled to 2 vouchers. In this case, the applicant actually had 2 specific date of injuries, all in the same year with overlapping body parts. Got 2 PD awards, got 2 vouchers. Also brings up a good question whether they can get 2 $5,000 checks under the return to work program. Something to think about. And then next we provide you with a handy table, basically summing up everything I said to you on one page. What voucher program are you talking about? Return to work program, old voucher, new vouchers? What is the value of that voucher? How much of it goes to non-training related payment? When must notice issue? What are the requirements for notice to be issued? When does it expire, and can we settle that specific voucher? Lastly, what are the main takeaways? First, the value of the voucher is always fixed, as I mentioned earlier. Old voucher depends on the PD value. With new vouchers fixed at $6,000, how much do you really want to spend litigating the issue when you know it's a fixed benefit? Second, voucher program is notice driven. Notice is required, not payment. How much do you want to spend over sending notice? Send some type of notice and litigate the issue later if it ever comes up. Next, the voucher is a statutory creature. The rules apply to both sides. Just as much as we have requirements and criteria as to when notice should issue, the applicant must fulfill certain criteria as well as to when we need to issue the voucher. The date of the injury dictates the value of the voucher and how much it is used. And then all in all, always send notice. There's no penalty for oversending notice. And the statute of limitations does not scroll until some type of notice is sent. Any questions?
Thank you.